This is the annual training on the Emergency Action Plan for main office employees. Let's go over the map of the facility first, and we'll look at the highlighted areas. First, the green squares are the exits in the building. Exit A is the main exit off the employee parking lot. Exit B is the double doors out the west side of Kuhlman University. And exit C is the single door on the east end of the building down by accounting. Now, there are other exit doors out of the building, but these are the official exits of this emergency action plan. You can see the orange rectangles in the brick sample room. The bottom orange rectangle is the AED, and the orange rectangle above that is the first aid kit. The fire extinguisher locations are noted by red squares with the letter F in them. Please be aware of the closest fire extinguisher to where you normally work. And also, if you're in the mechanical room, there is a fire extinguisher by the double doors out by the air conditioning units and also at the top of the stairs of the mechanical room. And note the locations of all the other fire extinguishers. And finally on here, the blue squares are the locations of the alarm pads used for arming and disarming the alarm. And also on the next page, we'll learn what the other functions are for those alarm pads. Like I mentioned, you can use the alarm pads to contact emergency response. You can press F and hold it for the fire department, A for general medical, and letter P for police. Fire extinguishers, we had separate training on those. Just remember, so you're not panicked when you do this, remember that PASS, pull the pin, aim the hose at the base of the fire, squeeze the lever, and sweep the hose from side to side. First aid responders are currently listed here. If there's a medical emergency, you can contact one of these certified first aid responders. You can do that by paging from your phone, #30. You have 10 seconds to speak, and your message will go out over all phones. So anybody that's in the building could hear at their desk, or if they're walking by someone else's phone. At the main office, Terry Schaefer and Ken Kuhlman have the responsibility for implementing this plan. And they will determine what emergency procedures are to be followed. If they cannot be reached, and if there's not time to reach them, the most senior manager at the main office has full authority to implement this plan. After doing so, they must contact Ken and Terry to let them know what's going on. Fire typically will report by 911. Just remember, in an emergency, you have to do 9 from your desktop phone and then 911. Of course, just 911 from your cell phone. Anytime we do that, we're going to get 911 called first, then we'll let Terry or Ken know what's going on. So if there's a small fire that we're gonna try and put out with a fire extinguisher, we're going to call 911. We're going to get help on the way in case we can't get the fire contained. We're going to try and put out the fire, then we're going to let Terry and Ken know what's going on. Just be aware if there's any serious incident that would result in the death of an employee, even if it's a medical emergency, it has to be reported to OSHA within 8 hours. And any incident that would require inpatient hospitalization or an amputation, eye loss must be reported within 24 hours. If we do have an emergency, we're going to use that paging feature on our phones, #30, so we can inform people what's going on. In the event of a tornado, we're going to alert all employees, any visitors that might be in the building at the time. And remember, those yellow squares on this map are the central storage room and the secure room. Those are the locations we're going to meet in the event of a tornado warning. If we have a blizzard or another weather condition, Terry and Ken will coordinate work hours. If the blizzard happens during work hours, they'll coordinate when to send folks home. In Ohio here, we have different snow levels. Level 3, meaning you can't legally drive on the road unless it's an emergency. So level 3, if it happens off work hours, you would not report to work during the level 3. If it is reduced to a lower level, like level 2, level 1, or taken off altogether during the workday, you may need to report to work within 2 hours of that level 3 being reduced. But certainly contact your supervisor or Ken or Terry to coordinate that. Medical emergencies, again, it's 911 or 911 from your desktop phone. You can always dial 200 to reach the receptionist if you need the receptionist to call 911 for you so you can deal with the emergency. Receptionist can page, asking first aid responders to report to a location where a medical emergency might be happening. And trained personnel are authorized to perform first aid and or CPR. Remember, the location of the AED and the first aid kit is on the west wall of the brick sample room. And it's important to note that James Stewart or myself, Steve Grau, or other trained employee can comfort an injured person while we're waiting for EMS to show up. Should we have a fire or other serious event here that's listed, we're going to report that immediately to Terry and Ken. We may be able to use the alarm pads as well, or 911 from your desktop phone, or 911 from your cell phone. If we don't need to evacuate the building, if it's just a small event, small fire, we don't have to evacuate. We're going to use personal protective equipment to protect ourselves if there's any chemical spills. And again, if there's any injuries, we're going to wait for EMS to show up and help and take over. Sometimes in an emergency, the building needs to be evacuated. If it's a fire that gets out of hand or some other major chemical spill, we'll need to evacuate the building. If we're going to evacuate, you're going to use one of those 3 exits shown on that first map. A, again, is the main entrance, which would be the main exit off the employee parking area. B, out the double doors in Kuhlman University. And C, on the east side of the building down by accounting. No matter what exit you go out of, we're going to meet by the dumpster in the northwest corner of the parking lot. We do have primary and secondary exits, so we consider the buildings kind of divided in half. So this list of employees, just look for your name and see what your primary and secondary exits are. So if you're listed here on this page, your primary exit will be out the main double doors, the main entrance off the parking lot. If that entrance is blocked or there's a hazard there, a secondary would be out of Kuhlman University side doors. Or if that whole end of the building is the issue, you're going to exit out the east end of the building out of exit C. Look for your name here also. For instance, Nelson has responsibilities in the event that we evacuate. Tracy is the alternate if Nelson's not here. Ken Kuhlman has responsibility to close the boardroom doors. Mary Meixel is alternate. If you see your name on here to close doors, the reason we do that is if there's a fire, if you can close off a room, if it has a door to close it off, it can keep the fire from spreading into rooms with open doors. So Larry Matuzik, responsibility checks the men's bathroom, make sure it's vacant. and close Dean's door if he's absent. Again, before you close somebody's door, obviously you want to make sure nobody's in the office. We want to make sure everybody's out. So when emergency response shows up, we can tell them there's no one in the building. Terry Vowles, check the women's restroom, lobby and showroom to make sure it's vacant. Whoever is sitting in for Terry, if Terry's not here, the receptionist would be the alternate here. On this page, list of employees, look for your name. If you're on here, your primary exit will be out the east end of the building down by accounting, exit C. If that end of the building, that exit's blocked, or that's where a fire would be, your secondary exits would be exit A, the main entrance, or exit B out of Kuhlman University. Again, we're gonna meet by the dumpsters. Look for your name here. You might have responsibility to close doors or turn off electricity. So Mary, Steve Grau, Dan Lysick, Harley Mays, James Stewart, Terry Schaefer, Kevin Tresso, Margaret, and Sue Zacharias all have responsibilities here. So look for your name. Keep that in mind in the event of an emergency evacuation. Once we've been evacuated, make sure that 911's been called. We'll make sure all employees are out. This is, again, why it's important if you're going to leave the building that you let the receptionist know that you're leaving and when you might be back. The last thing we want is an emergency responder to go into a burning building looking for somebody that's already left. So, if emergency response shows up, we're gonna, try and get people's names that are in charge of the scene. They'll show up. If it's a fire, the fire chief will take control of the scene and order people what to do and how to do it. If we evacuate, it's important not to leave to go home until you're released. So again, we make sure that everybody's out. We're not looking for somebody that's already left to go home. Last thing on this page is if there's sales folks that are out or somebody's on lunch, we want to try and contact them to let them know not to head back to the main office because we have evacuated it. Here's kind of an overview satellite map of the exits and where we're going to meet. So again, exit A, out the west side of the building, meet by the dumpster. Exit B, out of Kuhlman University double doors, meet by the dumpster. And exit C, out the east end of the building, go around the back of the property, meet by the dumpsters. We're going to do this emergency training at least annually. When we make any changes, new employees are given this training. Anytime we make any changes, when we revise policies, or when we do an audit, and let's say we do an evacuation drill or a drill to meet as if we were having a tornado warning, if we see that we're not up to speed on evacuating properly, we'll revisit the training. Terry, Ken, or myself will do the necessary training. Handling the media. Anytime there is an event where police, fire show up, media is going to show up as well. And it's important to note that our company policy is that only our company president, Ken Kuhlman, respond to the media. If Ken's not available, only a vice president could respond to the media on behalf of the company. It's important to remember that because the media will tend to misquote. They're looking for a story, an angle, something exciting to say. And we've had events in the past where they've taken comments out of context or misquoted folks. If you have any questions on this policy, please see Terry, Ken, or myself. And here's a list of some of the emergency phone numbers. You have a copy of this plan, just keep it handy at your desk so you can have these phone numbers in case of an emergency. If there's any kind of major chemical spill, we'd need to contact the EPA. Here's some direct phone numbers for some of the emergency responders in Maumee. That concludes this training. Again, if you have any questions on this plan, see Terry, Ken, or Steve Grau. Thank you for your attention.